It was an extraordinary atmosphere in the House of Commons. There was hairdryer treatment, as it's called, dealt out by the whips. People were being brought into the Prime Minister's office. They were being told, the pro-Remain rebels, that what they were about to do was trigger a no-confidence vote in the Prime Minister. Brexit MPs, it was being said, pro-Brexit MPs would put in those letters any minute and it would all happen immediately. The threats were very, very aggressive. Some of the whipping, and we've seen a bit of it as you do under a minority government, really was at the sharp end. But in the end, the government got through, and they got through with the help of 4 MPs who were elected as Labour MPs. 3 of them still are, one of them's currently an independent. What it means, amongst many other things, is that the government is probably going to have to go fishing amongst a different group of MPs, not pro-Brexit Labour MPs, but maybe pro-Remain Labour MPs, if it's to get anything like a deal through the House of Commons. By no means a done deal. By the way, just to add to the complications, this particular bit of business then goes to the House of Lords, and they could ping back an amendment exactly like the one that was defeated just now. Another torrid day for Theresa May. Changed personnel again at today's cabinet, but whips spent the afternoon warning potential pro-Remain rebels that the boss herself might be challenged if they defeated the government. Pro-Brexit MPs were, they said, ready to move a vote of no confidence in Theresa May if tonight's vote was lost. The rebels, though, weren't budging.
They are so terrified of the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph and the European Research Group, they are now applying a whip to try to defeat it. And I really hope that they go away for the summer, have a good rest, perhaps lie in a quiet, dark room at some stage, and come back and tell us how exactly they do intend to negotiate these serious matters for the future of our country.
We must have that freedom to have our own international trade policy, our own agreements with countries other than the EU, and our ability to settle our own laws and spend our own money. The British public would expect no less of this Parliament, and they will not accept higgling of their decision to leave the EU.
Those sorts of voices at either end of the party look to some like they're closing off the chances of any deal getting through the Commons. Some have set up a centrist group of Tory MPs, hoping against hope they can build support for Theresa May's Chequers deal. The Chequers deal, as you look at it now, looks dead. Doesn't look like it would get through the Commons, does it? That's what you're trying to correct.
Well, I think this is, your analysis is, probably depressingly accurate. This whole thing is now being so polarised, it's almost impossible to see which way the PM can go, because whichever way is blocked by one interest group or another.
The government forces, Tory MPs plus the DUP, include around 80 or so MPs who are on the pro-Brexit ERG list. And last night, 14 pro-Remain MPs who've proved ready to vote against the government. Opposition forces include, inside Labour's tent, something around 75 pro-Remain MPs who've already got form as rebels supporting closer EU ties. 4 pro-Leave MPs who last night saved the government's skin. Put something like the Chequers deal in front of them, and the government could lose quite badly. Put the Brexiteers' preferred Canada-style free trade agreement in front of them, and the government loses again, maybe more narrowly.
I think there is a solid majority of good opinion in the Labour Party and a solid majority of good opinion in the Tory Party, which eventually will be able to coalesce around a deal, I hope.
It'll be a bit like a sort of national government.
I think it'll be a bit like a national government. And I must say, if I had my way, we would have a national government to deal with this. I think it is a problem. It's a national problem. It is the most serious problem this country has faced since the war.
And the Conservative Party alone is not in a state at the moment to hold together to do it.
I think it's going to be very difficult. And we, as always in these big things, there are people who are courageous enough to step over lines to do it.
Do you really think that will happen?
I think it might, yeah.
This year, before the year's out?
Before the year is out.
Tory association bosses have been pouring into number 10 today. Downing Street's been trying to sell the Brexit deal to them, having been warned of a grassroots uprising.
More work has to be done to get the party behind her and to get the general public behind her, I think.
Some more hostile voices are expected to join a conference call the Prime Minister was due to be holding right now. Well, a little earlier I caught up with the former Brexit Secretary, David Davis, who surrendered his seat at the cabinet table just over a week ago, and I started by asking him if Brussels engages with the Chequers plan, how much realistically room for manoeuvre does Theresa May have?
The simple truth is that if there is another big demand, I think Parliament will start demanding that we start again, that we do something different. I don't think another demand is deliverable in the House of Commons.
You don't think the Prime Minister's got any wriggle room at all in terms of moving closer to Europe, as people expect is the plan behind this Chequers deal?
Tiny details, but no more than that. I mean, there's always the tiniest thing, but big movements, no.
If Europe it does engage with the Chequers deal, and the Prime Minister engages with that, and there are talks about potentially moving a bit closer to some of the EU institutions than the Chequers deal allows for, you're saying at that point there is an uprising?
I think at that point, Parliament, I wouldn't put it in those dramatic terms, I think at that point the majority starts to slip away, because when we come to October, I have no doubt that the Labour Party will vote against whatever's brought in front of the House. They've written a set of conditions which is designed to fail any deal. That's what it's about. It's not about sensible conditions. So the Prime Minister is going to need to take virtually the entire Tory party with her.
Now, there's the problem, because the entire Tory party is not a coherent group at all anymore. It's fractured.
I said virtually. Yes, that's right.
But even virtually, you can't afford to lose many people in that no-deal vote, can you? People are struggling to understand, given the numbers in the House of Commons, how any deal gets through this House of Commons.
Well, you have to do the numbers in detail, but you've got a little bit of slack, but not very much.
So what you're saying is that the Prime Minister mustn't move on this. This is not a negotiating position, Chequers. She's got to simply put it on the table. Europe's got to either pick the whole thing up and sign it.
That's pretty much her words the other day.
Well, it's not how most people have interpreted her approach to the Chequers deal. She might have felt she had to say something when she was cornered by a few brutes like you at an awkward moment.
I don't consider myself a brute.
But we know that this is an opening negotiating position, and they've tried to give them. They hope to get engagement from Brussels. You're saying you go one step off the reservation of this pretty shoddy deal, and you're in trouble with your party, serious trouble.
It's pretty close to the limit. That's what I'd say.
Isn't the truth that you feel a certain, even now, residual loyalty to Theresa May? You don't want to plunge the knife in, but as lots of people around you, people who've been very close to you, are saying, she is not the person for the next part of this journey if Chequers is rejected.
Well, I don't agree with that. I can't speak for other people on this. I mean, I have a very simple view. She's a good Prime Minister with a formidably difficult job. That's the problem, and she's trying to find a way through. I don't agree with the way she's chosen, but it doesn't mean that's sort of terminal. It means we're going to have to find another way.
It's one of the biggest strategic choices this country could possibly make. You're saying she's called it completely wrong, an absolute howler, and yet you're trying to convince me you want her to stay Prime Minister.
Those are your words, not my words.
I'm paraphrasing, but I'm about right,
actually, well, no. If you want to paraphrase one of the sentences in my letter to her, which said, it's a complex judgment. You might be wrong, right, and I might be wrong.
No deal is, when you look at the complexion of this Parliament, a very plausible outcome.
It's a possible outcome, certainly.
It's better than Chequers.
Well, the difficulty, what you call no deal, it depends what it is. There's a bare bones deal, World Trade Organization plus some other elements, which is actually the most likely outcome under those circumstances. I would certainly think it competes with Chequers, certainly. And
it brings a lot of economic harm with it.
No, I mean, one of the arguments...
There'll be a hit.
There'll be a hit. If you want to go down that route, then it's worth actually looking at it properly. I'll say there will be temporary turbulence, an issue at the border, as the French cause a difficulty. There will be issues elsewhere which we have to deal with.
And those have knock-ons, don't they? Food on the shelves.
No. I mean, I've done all that planning. No, I mean there was a lot of really bogus, really scarce.
It was coming from the supermarket, some of it.
Well, it was rubbish. It was.
What do they know? They just run supermarkets.
No. It was rubbish. I mean, the presumption that you've only got one source of fresh food, one source of this. There were stories about being shortages of medicines. Well, we've been through all that planning in great detail. We have this issue to deal with every winter in NHS.
Vote Leave. What view do you take of how they appear to have managed their affairs?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I turned up on vote leave platforms. I had nothing to do with the management of it, so I have really no idea what the truth of this matter is, and how well it's been investigated and what the outcome is. What's more, it looks like it's going to go to the police, so it would be very wrong for me to comment on it.
David Davis talking to Gary Gibbon earlier. Well, joining me now live from Central Lobby is the Conservative Remain supporting MP Antoinette Sandbach. And what we seem to be taking away tonight is that when it comes to the crunch, Jacob Rees-Mogg and his Brexiteers can defeat the government, but you and the Remainers can't.
No, I don't agree with that at all. We won a very important amendment on the European Medicines Agency this evening, which is vital for my constituency, where I have a lot of people who work for example, AstraZeneca. The vote on the customs, staying in a customs union after the 21st of January, if there is no deal, was an attempt to put a backstop in tonight. I understand that a large number of members of the Conservative Party don't want to tie or would seek not to tie the Prime Minister's hands at this stage. But I suspect if we get to the 21st of January and there is no deal, a large number of people in the House of Commons will not support a no-deal outcome, which would be catastrophic for jobs in my constituency and in the Northwest. And the independent government analysis shows that.
Oh, you're surely not going to wait that long until the end of January before you make your move to protect the economy as you see it from a cliff-edge Brexit?
Well, we already have that process in the EU withdrawal bill, and there's a set lines of when certain matters are going to be debated, and the 21st of January is one of those. The Prime Minister has been very clear that she wants the deal achieved and outlined by October, and I'm very keen. I support the Chequers agreement. The amendment that was framed today was actually framed to support the Chequers agreement. And I'm very clear that if she comes back with a good deal in October, I will be supporting that.
It doesn't look tonight like there is any majority in the House of Commons for any kind of deal over Brexit, as long as Labour is still opposing.
Well, what it did show is that that this amendment was defeated by Labour members of Parliament. And you have to question what their stance is when they have repeatedly said that they want to protect jobs and employment, that they themselves want to negotiate a customs union. And it has shown, tonight has shown, that the Labour Party is split.
And let me also ask you about the really big development that we'll be going into more detail about in a moment, which is the reference by the Electoral Commission of vote leave to the police and the finding that they broke the law. Your colleagues, like Nicholas Soames, are now saying, scrap the whole thing, run the referendum again. Are you coming round to that thought, that we just need to scrap it and start again?
Well, I certainly am coming round to the thought that people voted last time not knowing what the potential deal was. I'm not sure running the referendum again would help, but I am starting to come round to the idea that a referendum on the actual deal would be a good idea. After all, we were told that it's the people's will, and I think particularly with the allegations of cheating, the fact that there were findings that vote leave had breached electoral law, so much so that the file has been handed over to the police. I think certainly my constituents wanted to know that the process was fair and that they weren't, that there wasn't foul play in the way that the campaigns were run. And I think it will cause a lot of my constituents unease to hear about those findings today.
Antoinette Sandbach, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, with me here on the green is a Conservative MP from the other side, Desmond Swayne. Now, confusingly, you voted with the government tonight.
I did.
But you are a Brexiteer.
I am.
This whole thing's a shambles, isn't it? Total mess.
No, the government is endeavouring to honour the referendum result. The government is a Brexiteer government, and I'm a government supporter.
Yes, but you're threatening to defeat your own government.
Oh no, I'm not a member.
1 minute you're threatening to defeat them, 1 minute you're threatening with them.
I haven't.
The whole thing's a mess.
Comrade, I haven't threatened anyone.
Are you saying you will definitely support Theresa May's Chequers
I think
suggestion.
anyone who supports Brexit has to be very careful about joining some sort of suicide squad and saying this wasn't the Brexit.
Who's
that the
committing
people,
suicide? Theresa May?
No, what I'm saying is those people who might want to pull the entire temple and edifice down on their heads because it isn't
Jacob
isn't the particular flavour of Brexit that they particularly wanted. Now, I'm a member of the ERG and I have a great deal of time for Rees-Mogg, but I think we've all got to
So you're in the suicide squad, you just don't agree with the man who's leading it?
No, I'm saying I didn't join a suicide squad.
Right.
I'm
Well,
saying,
you did apparently.
I'm saying that we
Are you going to leave it?
On the contrary, what Jacob Rees-Mogg achieved yesterday was his desired end. Now, the important thing is we have not, as you clearly indicated earlier, there is, in my estimate, no majority in Parliament for any particular flavour of Brexit.
That's a disaster.
My concern...
And a farce, 2 years after the vote.
Well, blame the voters because they elected the Parliament. The reality is this. We have to work through that and find a way of honouring the decision that the voters made without, as I say, joining some sort of suicide squad
Stupid
that wrecks
voters
the whole
for electing
thing.
stupid MPs.
Well,
That's what you seem to be saying tonight.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the people voted in the way that they voted and they got the Parliament that they voted for.
Yes.
And we have to
Lawful
deliver...
then.
Well, that you're saying that. I wouldn't possibly say that.
Well, you just kind of said it. I mean, look, the country wants some leadership. And what we appear to be heading towards right now, because you say there is no consensus around any particular Brexit, is no deal. That's the reality, isn't it? Don't you now have to start laying out to people what no deal really means? For jobs, for economic growth, for everything.
There is a clear difference of opinion as to what no deal means. But the reality is the Prime Minister is giving leadership to try and find a deal. And I'm saying that like-minded colleagues, whatever their own particular preference with respect to Brexit, need to clearly think what is the best possibility of honouring the decision that the people made. And that, I'm afraid, is something with the Prime Minister at the moment.
Today we also know that Vote Leave broke the law. The campaign was illegal. Is it illegitimate? Should we start again, as your esteemed colleague Nicholas Soames suggested today?
The law must take its course. Those people who break the law must face up to their punishment.
Yes,
but I don't believe for one moment it invalidates the result. The reality is this. The Remain campaigns, plural, and I include the government campaign, which was a Remain campaign, outspent Leave campaigns.
But they didn't break the law, as far as we know yet.
Outspent them by a factor of 2 to 1. That's
Vote Leave cheated. That's the point.
And the price of cheating will be the punishment, the law. But the reality is that it didn't, in my estimate, make much difference to the outcome.
Desmond Swayne, thank you very much indeed.